Hi there, I'm Paul Mitchell, leadership coach and author and founder of The Human Enterprise. If you've been following my blog lately, you know I've been intrigued by the work of Dr. Adizes. Particularly one of his texts I think is a seminal text that every leader should read, and that is Mastering Change. And one of the things Dr. Adizes talks about in that book is the functions of management, the 4 functions of management. So first of all, he talks about that any good manager or leader has to focus on the short term and the long term. We need to take both into account. And we also need to be both effective and efficient. And with those parameters, short term and long term, effective and efficient, he talks about 4 key functions that must be present in a business, must be present in a leader. The first, well, let me go through the whole 4 and I'll come back to them. The first one is purpose, the purpose function. The second one is the administrative function. The next is the entrepreneurial function or the entrepreneur. And the final function is the integrator. So what's the purpose function? Well, the purpose function is to be effective in the short term, that the organisation must have a purpose and reach that purpose, and the purpose is to satisfy clients' needs. So when you're obviously in a startup sort of business, you have to satisfy client needs or you'll be out of business. But you have to get cash flow in any business. So we're always going to have this purpose need. So it tends to be more immediate, more short-term, and satisfying client needs. But you can do that and do it very, very inefficiently and you'll go bust. You could be going out there spending a fortune to satisfy client needs, but not looking at some of the admin, some of the backup. So the second role is that of administrator. And that's making sure that in the short term, the business is efficient, that things are being done to spec to particular processes. But you do all those and you could still go bust because you're only focusing on the short term and not the long term. So what's the long term? Well, long term is the function of entrepreneur and the function of integrator. Let's have a look at entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is effective in the long term. The entrepreneurial function is to have a look at new products, new ways of distributing, having a look at what the external market's doing, what the external market is telling you, global changes, robotics, health, whatever. And so you're thinking ahead all the time. And can you see automatically how some of these functions or roles are almost incompatible to some of the others? That's for another day. But that's why we often get tensions in teams. And the final role, which is in the long term and also it's efficient, is that of the integrator. Who's pulling all this together? Who's making the team hum? Although there might be things you're doing in the present, they are things that you're doing in the present for the long-term success of the business. How well do we really integrate with our suppliers? How well do we integrate with divisions across the business? And if you miss one of those functions, your business will not operate well. If you have a leader, and often a leader might be good at one or possibly 2 of those functions, but I've never seen one that's good at all 4. If you have a leader that doesn't honour those functions and get different people around him or her to support them, you're never going to get the cut through. So those roles again, I ask you to think about in the short term, are we making sure we're having discussions about purpose? Are we effective? Are we having discussions about being efficient, which tend to be more eternal in the short term? Are we having long-term discussions about what's happening out there? Are we being proactive enough? Are we being entrepreneurial enough? And that's effective in the long term. And are we having discussions about being efficient in the long term? How well are we bringing this whole thing together? How well are we integrating? I absolutely promise you, if you even just discuss those 4 things in your next team meeting and have a look at the decisions you're making, it will take your decision making to another level, it'll take your teamwork to another level, it'll take your organisation to another level. I'm Paul Mitchell. Find the passion, develop the skills, make the numbers, and make a difference.